So today I wanted to focus on Prince Harry's chart, and what we're going to look at today is what is Prince Harry's heaviest karma? What kind of life lessons does he have to deal with in this lifetime? And what are some of the most challenging situations he may find himself in during his lifetime? You see, the astrology chart is really good at identifying those, and I'm going to show you how in this video today. For those of you that are new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you to all of you who are supporting my channel. Thank you for those of you that are purchasing readings. It does support what I do as well. My goal is 10,000 subscribers. If you're interested in a private reading, check for details down below. There is a discount for the month of November. It's 40% off if you use codename Thor at checkout. And just as a reminder, this is Vedic sidereal astrology, not Western tropical astrology, for those of you that are new to this. So, what we're going to do is we are going to talk about Prince Harry's heavy karmas in his astrology chart. So, I'm going to explain that for you using the chart. Let's pull that up right now. Here's Prince Harry's chart, and a quick disclaimer: astrology is for entertainment purposes only. These are all allegedlys, and we're just speculating as to the astrological energies about Prince Harry. Okay, so the number one thing we want to look at when we're looking at someone's heaviest challenges or heaviest karmas within the current lifetime is we always want to look at where planet Saturn is within a birth chart. That's going to be your main source of karmic obstacles in your life. So in Prince Harry's chart, you'll see it's in the 11th house of Libra. And so this house is going to be focused on, and we're going to explain that in a second. We'll deep dive into that. We also want to look at, and I'm going to number the houses from Saturn so you can kind of get an understanding of how this works. But Saturn aspects the house third from itself, it aspects the house seventh from itself, and it aspects the house 10th from itself. So these houses, house number 1 here, house number 5, and house number 8 are all going to be sources of karmic frustration, challenges, obstacles, and be a general pain in the neck throughout the lifetime. So I thought it might be interesting to show you guys what this would mean, because you can also look at this stuff in your own birth charts as well. So those are all going to be sources of great difficulty within the lifetime. So that's how you determine it. Find where Saturn is, look at the house, 3 houses from itself, 7 houses house from itself, and 10 houses from itself. Now the third aspect and the 10th aspect are the most powerful aspects. The 7th aspect is, it is problems, but it's a little bit reduced the strength of what's called the drishti from Saturn. So that's something to be aware of. Okay, so let's talk about what this karma means. What does it mean that Saturn's in the 11th house? So I want to share on a slide with you so I can make it really easy to learn. So let's go to this slideshow real quick. So Prince Harry's Saturn being in the 11th house shows that a lot of his karmic lessons and obstacles are going to come through friendships and network associations. So, believe it or not, from Prince Harry's point of view, even though he's really famous, it might actually, according to him in his chart, it might feel like it's actually difficult to make friends, or at least friends that feel real and genuine. Someone with Saturn in the 11th house may be kind of utilitarian about their friends. Like they might look at what's the usefulness of their friends instead of just having friends for just a general sense of camaraderie or a general sense of just kinship with people. So that can be difficult. His salary and his income is reduced throughout the lifetime. So for example, when Prince Harry and Meghan were wanting to, well, they moved to California and they're wanting to set up this business where they're making money on books and media appearances. Well, Saturn in the 11th house is going to restrict how much he's made. So even though he might have all these wonderful aspirations to make incredible money, Saturn in the 11th is going to reduce and restrict that. So there's going to be a lot of frustration with money throughout the lifetime, especially if he's trying to earn the money on his own and he's not getting some sort of allowance from the royal family, which when he let go of his royal duties, essentially he's let go of that allowance. Comment down below if the story is different than what I'm saying. But he's kind of out on his own and it's going to be reduced. So even if he's negotiating with Netflix or negotiating with some sort of media appearance, he's usually going to get less than he really wants. The goals are also harmed with Saturn in the 11th house. So the goals tend to be have lots of obstacles. So, for example, he wants to get a house. Maybe it's a smaller house than he wanted. So that's just an example. Also, there's this fear with Saturn in the 11th house, the fear of becoming average, like the fear of coming out of the spotlight, believe it or not. So there might be this idea of if he kind of just fades into oblivion, there's a strong fear that he might just disappear and just become kind of like everybody else, kind of disappearing in the ocean of the masses. That's something that's definitely a fear with Saturn in the 11th house. There's the aspect on the first house that we talked about. There's a lot of social criticism within this lifetime, and it's pretty easy to see that when he got married to Megan and then they left the royal family essentially and they moved, there was a lot of social criticism obviously around the world and especially in the UK. Let's move on and talk about what other houses this affects as well, because these are also going to be sources of karmic frustration throughout the lifetime. Saturn's aspecting the fifth house with its seventh aspect, which is going to show heavy duties regarding children. So when someone has Saturn in the fifth house or Saturn aspecting the fifth house, children can be perceived to be somewhat of a burden. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means that there's a sense of there's all this obligation and duty surrounding children. Maybe you have to devote a lot of time and resources to them. And it's seen as it's taking away from your own personal, whatever you want to do personally, maybe your hobbies or your social life. There can be this idea of, again, they're perceived as a burden. Saturn on the fifth house is going to restrict the creativity. So some people, I've heard some criticisms of the book Spare, like people didn't like the writing or people didn't think it was, that it was very entertaining. So there was a restriction in that with Saturn being on the fifth house. Let's talk about the aspect on the eighth house. Okay, that's the 10th aspect of Saturn. It's a very strong aspect. What this does is this reduces the amount of inheritance. It reduces the amount of investor money, difficult in-laws. So whether or not we're aware of the relationship with Meghan Markle's mother and her father, it may be seen as a very difficult, strained relationship from the point of view of Prince Harry with this chart. Also, the marital estate is harmed. So it tends to, when you have Saturn aspecting the eighth house or it's in the eighth house, it tends to reduce the marital finances. And you can see that's probably what's happening. Even though they had all this in the last year, they had Spare come out, the Netflix series, we might actually see it's getting more and more difficult as the story kind of fades with the aspect on the eighth house. Also, there's slow recovery after shocks. So if Prince Harry in the future does get divorced, it's going to be a very long recovery. So both financially, on a social status level, and also emotionally, it's going to be very difficult to get over it when Saturn's aspecting the eighth house. There's also limitations on secret knowledge with Saturn aspecting the eighth house. So there might be a lot of secrets around your family or secrets around people, your friends and associations, and you're not privy to those secrets with Saturn aspecting the eighth house. On a positive side, Saturn on the aspecting the eighth house can actually extend the lifespan. So that's one positive thing, even though this video is focusing on the negative aspects of the chart. The final thing I want to talk about is, and let me pull this up so you all can see this. Let's pull up the chart really fast. One of the important aspects to look at when we're looking at especially a marriage relationship, and let me clean up the top chart real quick so I can make this very clear for you all, is first of all, you do want to look at the seventh house, but actually what's more important is actually seventh from moon, because your experience of these things are mostly, relationships are mostly emotional. So that's something to take into consideration. So the moon, think of it as your emotional core, your emotional self, your sense of self there. The moon has a lot of your karmic memories, the Akashic records, if you want to call them that. It has a lot of that information contained within the moon. So if you count 7 houses from the moon, this gives you a lot of information about marriage, your marriage partner. This would pertain to the first marriage partner. And we know in Prince Harry's case, this is the first marriage. So if we look at 7th from moon, you'll notice it's the 11th house, which shows that, this relationship was at least perceived from Prince Harry to be gainful in some sort of way. Maybe he saw from his point of view, Meghan Markle, she was a minor celebrity. She was on Suits. Maybe he felt like she was kind of up and coming, from his point of view. So he saw this as some sort of access. Maybe he even thought that she knows a lot of Hollywood people. So there's this idea of gainfulness and access to a lot of friendships and networks through this relationship. However, it can be deceptive because Saturn's there. So that's what I want to talk about. That Saturn karma is actually making it very difficult, the relationship. So even though he may have originally thought, this is going to be a very gainful and good relationship, there was a lot of challenges because Saturn's there. Maybe he didn't quite perceive that when he first got married. So let's talk about that. So when Saturn is in 7th from moon, it's going to give us information on how Prince Harry is perceiving his spouse, Meghan Markle. So for example, Saturn would represent that the spouse, according to Prince Harry, his point of view, seems very resistant to change, is very focused on materialism within the marriage. The marriage might feel quite cold from his point of view. Maybe he wants more love. Maybe he wants more warmness in the marriage. But from his point of view, she seems very focused on, material concerns, maybe about the marital estate, or she's concerned on, trying to secure deals for various income. So it's not seen as he wants this loving marriage where he's feeling very loved, but it's feeling very cold. It's feeling like a marriage that's really obsessed with duty. So that's something to take out of this. The spouse may be very stubborn in what their beliefs are. So they might have private conversations where he feels like she won't change. She's very stubborn in everything she believes. And that can be tremendously frustrating. The spouse even may be considered a obstacle or limitation on an emotional level. So especially, this activates after you're married. So while they were dating, the karma of this did not activate fully. That's something to think about. So once they got married, he's starting to realize, okay, whoa, she's really becoming an obstacle emotionally. She's very cold, maybe feeling very lifeless kind of idea. Remember, this is emotionally perceived. There's also this idea of emotional disappointment with the marriage. So even though he's trying probably to keep calm and carry on and probably trying to keep a nice face on all of this to the public, it might, from his point of view, because remember, the moon is our most sensitive part of ourselves that we don't share with everybody. It might be just seen as this disappointment. Like it's very emotionally disappointed on a deep level. And this can be difficult. And this is actually what would make me feel for Prince Harry and have compassion for Prince Harry. Just knowing that, despite all the criticism, there is difficulty within the relationship that we can see even within the chart. Now, I know everybody says they probably know there's difficulty. Probably people assume that, but the chart really does confirm that. So those are some of Prince Harry's largest, his life challenges throughout his life. So for example, whether or not the relationship stays together with him and his spouse, for example, with Saturn aspecting the 5th house, it could show difficulty with children throughout the lifetime. So for example, there might be long separations or instances where he doesn't see his children for a long time. Okay, with Saturn aspecting the 5th house. So that's something to keep in mind as we think about the future and the things that happen in the future, that these aspects are still going to be influencing him throughout the future. So for example, also, if he gets divorced, that aspect to the 1st house could show that society and everyone around him is going to be telling you, we told you so. And there's going to be that social criticism that's coming into play. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, please type them down below. I'll be more than happy to read them. Thank you for watching. Let me know if there's any other videos you would like to see, especially with the royal family. Thank you and take care.